Madame Askew, and I'm so thrilled to be here this morning with the absolutely stunning Kingfisher, author extraordinaire. Hello, my friend. Welcome. Thank you for
Happy
coming.
to be here.
Ah, what a pleasure. Also, good morning, everyone. Lady June Squirrel, Ty, it's so great to see you. Thanks for joining. Cheers and pom-poms away. Thank you, my darling. So we had to reschedule. August was a crazy time. We were both doing many fabulous things, but you were off to Dragon Con.
I was. I had agreed actually to Rose City Comic Con the weekend before, and then Dragon Con invited me as the literary guest. And so suddenly I was doing a 5-day con, coming home doing laundry, and then doing another con, and all was madness and punchiness.
Oh my gosh, that's such a brutal schedule. I have done something similar, but not quite as intense because Peru was involved, right? There was.
Yes, I had been to Peru like 2 weeks earlier, and but that was the end of my crazy summer schedule. I get to settle down, except for I think a minor book tour in a week, but then I'm good. I think.
Good. So good. You also moved across country. So you're now here in the great Southwest, in the arid lands, in the lands of cacti and plants that try and murder you, but also places where winter is much more mild. So welcome back
Yes.
to the
Oh,
Southwest.
thank you, thank you. Yes, I grew up partly in Arizona and have missed the desert so much, and it's lovely to be in New Mexico. And
Oh,
also, New Mexico is full of very strange hippie people, and I love them.
it's wonderful. I do love the high desert of New Mexico. It's so stunning. And I've gotten to spend a bit of time there myself, mostly around the Santa Fe Opera. It's just gorgeous country, but there is quite the hippie contingent that feels like a little bit your people because you're really interested in the natural world. You bring that into your stories, but I love following your social media, especially on Blue Sky, where you talk about your garden and your adventures with creatures. And on your biography, you mentioned being a turtle wrangler. So I have to ask, can you share the turtle wrangling story?
Oh, it's honestly not just one story. North Carolina has the greatest percentage, which is where I lived before, for New Mexico, has the greatest percentage of turtles trying to cross roads that I have ever encountered in my life. And so when I moved there, I was astonished, and I spent about 15 years there. And every summer, I would, at some points, multiple points, I would end up stopping the car, usually blocking traffic, getting the turtle, moving it across the road where it was going. And this was fine when they were the little mild mannered sliders, or all they do is frequently they will try to pee on you. But occasionally I had to move snapping turtles, and that is an adventure. And you have to like throw a jacket or something over their head, and while that distracts them, you grab the back of the shell and push. You can't just grab the back of the shell because they can jump and they can spin in midair, and they are terrifying in that regard. They're wonderful. So yeah, I helped a lot of turtles across the road, and
So
it was a thing.
from all right, I have to confess something. So my family is also obsessed with rescuing turtles, and I grew up in a clan of turtle rescuing time travelers. My grandpapa's moniker was Turtle Johnson. And so there never was a turtle trying to cross the road that we did not stop for. But But those snapping turtles are one of the most terrifying creatures I've ever seen in action. They will come for you, everyone. This is not overstated. There are more vicious creatures in the world, but they're up there. So thank you for saving them and risking your fingers, your digits, your nose even. They'll go for anything, right?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. They if you have something for them to snap onto that is sturdy enough, you can sometimes convince them to hold on to it while you drag that across the road. But they are stubborn, and they do not take anyone's shit.
They do not, but look, I know the Turtle Gambit is sort of like a wild place to start, and everyone, I love that you're like, yes, turtles, yes, Gamera, we love all of this. Terp approved, right? We're very keen on our shelled brethren, but you sort of write characters. I know this seems weird, but you write characters who have some of that snapping turtle energy. Uh, your heroines in particular can really spin in midair, metaphorically, and like they will do what they need sometimes to the surprise of everyone around them. They seem like really delightful women right up until they're like, I have a sword that has a man trapped in it, and I will do what I need to get that sword where it needs to go. So can you talk a little bit? This is, for those who have not read, this is a reference to Sword Heart, which is such a fantastic novel, and if you haven't read it, treat yourself. It's wonderful. You ought to read it. But can you talk a little bit about how you create these incredible, especially your heroines, who can have this facade of being mousy or kind or sweet or sort of they are often underestimated, but inside they're like, no, I'm a knife fighter and I will stab you.
I part of it is I think that sometimes the heroine does not even know they're a knife fighter until push comes to shove. And I know a lot of people who have had the experience of you go through life. It's you get along, and then you run into a situation where getting along will not work, and or you're in a crisis and no one else is stepping up to deal with it, and you're like, well, I guess I have to deal with this, and uh, you do. And I know a fair number of people who basically like, well, I guess someone has to deal with this. And I am possibly a bit like that myself, although I try to avoid having to deal with those things because it's generally not pleasant. But I think many of my characters are like, well, no one else is saving the world. I guess I really don't want to. I'm very tired, but here I am. Somebody's got to do it. And a lot of the people that I know in jobs that are sort of important like that, or particularly safety oriented and whatnot, have very much an attitude of this is it's not that I particularly want to be getting up at 3 a.m. to respond to calls that a toddler has shoved nuclear warhead up their nose, but I someone has to, and it's my job. So I do know a fair number of EMTs actually.
Someone must defuse the toddler, right?
Yes. I mean, even that's a thing that comes up a lot. Anyway, please, someone defuse the toddler.
I feel like that's a really sort of an important axiom for life at this point. So I love that you are observing this in life and then imbuing it into your characters. It's something I've seen in life, and I think as I'm like 537, so I've been around the block a bit, but I
You do not
noticed
look a day over 490.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. It's definitely the moisturizer. I carry a vat with me because you have to. The winds of time travel are fierce. But I notice this especially at this moment in time, that there are a lot of people who sort of need to roll their sleeves up and get on with the business of doing, despite what's happening or in response to what's happening. And one of the things we talked about coming into this conversation was that we're very aware as artists what's happening in the world, but also we're trying to provide a space for people to find joy, to find respite, to find a reprieve in our art. Your books are treasures. I don't know if you are aware of this, but they are gems.
Hey,
They're really marvelous. And I don't feel they are merely escapist frippery, because you have a lot of blood and sinew on the page. But you still are bringing a dedication to making this a sort of a world people can fall into. Is that something you think about when you're writing, or is it just the kind of story you write?
I think it's a lot of my writing is sort of instinctive. Occasionally, people ask me to teach workshops, and I'm like, uh, I can tell them write down the sentence in your head, write down the one that comes after, repeat for 100,000 words. That's all I got. But so a lot of it's happening sort of in the back brain. But there are certain stories that I just don't particularly want to tell. I am a sucker for happy endings. If everything ends tragically, I'm like, what was even the point of that? So there are brilliant books with tragic endings and whatnot. But they're not for me.
No.
I yeah, and it's also, I think a lot of the characters in my books tend to be fairly decent people who are reasonably helpful or not trying to screw you over. And which, in my experience in life, like at worst, most people are sort of indifferent and wrapped in their own concerns. But like, you know, I lived in Minnesota for a long time, and it's very icy at times. And I once like just wiped out on a sidewalk, and all of a sudden could not move for like four people, just going, "Oh my God, are you okay? Let me help you up. Let me help grab your stuff." And they're all total strangers. It's you know, the vast majority of people, I think. However, whatever petty, small-minded things they might have going on, if you are dangling off a cliff, their instinctive response is, "Oh God," and help pull you up. So a lot of my books have, you know, a lot of just generally sort of decent and occasionally helpful people in them, and I think a lot of people respond to that because there are a lot of books where everyone in the book, you know, who is not like the main character is out to stab you or you know, sell you for their own political ends and whatnot, and that's fine. I'm glad those books exist for people who like that, but I find that both exhausting and kind of unrealistic.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Look, I love this, because these days focusing on the basic goodness of humanity feels incredibly radical. It feels a little bit like a rallying cry for pushing back against like the sort of narrative of negativity and the narrative of divisiveness. And to be clear, I don't want to assert that I think that there are no divisions, or that there aren't people who are doing things that are reprehensible, but there is a sort of divisiveness that is manufactured, and you you do write radical stories. Like your White Rat, that whole organization is one of the most radical organizations I've read in a fantasy series. And I know, you know, not all of your books are necessarily connected in the world of the White Rat in a sort of linear way, but they're happening in the same world with this really cool organization at the center. Can you look? I'm clearly fangirling out about the White Rat, but I would love for you to share a bit about the genesis of this religious order and their activities in your stories for our wonderful audience here before I like go off into fangirl territory.
Sure, sure. The Temple of the White Rat was basically I did not sit down necessarily to create this organization. It was I was writing Sword Heart, and I was like, uh, this woman needs a lawyer, but it's a fantasy setting. I was like, okay, who would have lawyers? And I started thinking about if a religion whose mandate was just to solve problems, and it evolved into over time into the Temple of the White Rat, who basically employs lawyers and social workers and healers and sets up soup kitchens and and organizers and a lot of lawyers. And the uh, uh, the funny thing was the number of lawyers that I know online who responded to that, who were like, "Oh God, we get to be the good guys in a book. That's so rare." Uh, so yeah, I was just like, what if we had a religion that really worked at doing the things that religions, should do, and taking care of the disadvantaged and providing help and just generally, solving the problems. And the so the White Rat, their divine mandate to a certain extent is that if you have one problem and another problem, is there a way you can put them together and solve them both? And so it started out kind of as a we'll get a lawyer there, and then they were just such a useful thing to have in a fantasy novel that I kept coming back to them over and over again, because it's just really nice to have an organization that is like very clear-eyed about the shape of the world and very helpful. And I really enjoy it. And the I also the bishop who is in charge in this one particular city, Bishop Beartongue, has, I think, her own fan base. Uh, she's very. We will do this thing. We will get it done. I'm very interested in things, and sort of a little bit ruthless, but in a very kind way.
Yes. I mean, like, look, she's incredibly pragmatic, but not in a self-serving way. And I I love I the Temple of the White Rat really is like a love song to people who are fighting for social justice in this world. And I think they are wonderful. We definitely have some fans of Bishop Beartongue with us today. Also, hello,
Yay!
my darling. Hello. But no, it's such a wonderful love song to that kind of action. And I mean, Sword Heart has had a beautiful re-release. It's a gorgeous new volume of Sword Heart, but you wrote it a while ago, so you weren't sort of like looking around at the world right in this historical moment. You were
No,
looking at the world.
I wrote it 5 or 6 years ago. I can't remember. The pandemic disrupted my sense of linear time, but I wrote it, and at the time things were not, quite at the state they are now. I was involved in a lot of protests in the town I was in to remove Confederate statues, but it was I mean, it was just sort of the world is always like that and always needs people like that to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And I just, for fans of it who have not heard, I just handed in Daggerbound, the sequel, which will be coming out next year, which is the Dervishes book. And so, yes. I am finally back on track. I planned to write the sequel right away, and then I think the pandemic hit, and then, a lot of us who were writing started a book then. Uh, it became so hard to write on it that book became cursed, and we had to go work on something else, and that was the one that got cursed. So it took a few years before I could finish it and do the sequel, and a few years, and my editor standing over me going, "You have a deadline now." But it's fun. We get the more of the White Rat. We get Zale returns for a bit. So does Beartongue, and cameos by Sarkis and Hala. So it's
Oh, Oh, that's so exciting. Look, I'm so thrilled and cannot wait to read this book. Uh, but I have to come back to this thing. Like, it's cursed. It's been cursed. That experience. Every artist, every author, every person I have spoken to, including myself, who works in a creative endeavor, really did have that moment in 2020 in which it became so incredibly hard to impossible to create certain kinds of things or anything at all. And so it, for myself, I had been in the midst of doing this like choose your own adventure story that I was writing, and I have not been able to get back to it even now. It can be really hard to recapture that energy. Did you have to sort of write out some other things because you have been publishing and you've
Oh yeah.
published some like stunningly critically acclaimed horror in the meantime, but did you need to write through some things before you could come back to this piece?
I think that was some of it. Part of it was just the expectation of that book. I want to say.
Mm.
I know. I was talking to John Scalzi the other day, who's a science fiction writer for anyone not familiar with his work, and he was like, "Yeah, during the pandemic, I had a book that was due. I wrote 30,000 words on it, which was basically me writing the same 5,000 words 6 times." And my deadline was like 3 weeks away, and I finally told my editor it is not going to happen. And it was another military sci-fi thing. And then he sat down and wrote a very silly book about the moon being made of cheese, and that one worked. A lot of times I think it was just getting away from the thing you thought you were working on and going and doing something else, no matter what, helped a lot. And a lot of us, I think, did very silly things. We we did much more lighthearted projects, or we went the other way and did very dark things. I know I wrote several books during the pandemic. I cannot for the life of me remember which ones they were. I think I think I must have written the first Sworn Soldier book, which is on the one hand the Fall of the House of Usher, and it's a horror novel, but it was just a lot of fun to write because being in the main character's head, they had that kind of you know late 18th century European Dr. Livingston, I presume, thing going on, but in a very sort of uh, self-deprecating and aware kind of way, and they were just a lot of fun to write. So
Oh,
yeah,
oh, so I have a confession.
it's
I
okay if you haven't read it.
Oh no, I struggle to read horror. I am very susceptible to the sort of horror of the horror, and it tends to like stay with me indelibly for a long time. So I tend to eschew it, but you make me want to read your horror stories. Because partly it's because you're just such a brilliant writer. I'm like, well, everything's going to be wonderful, isn't it? I mean, I had the same problem with Martha Wells' Murderbot series. I love her books so much, and I was afraid to read Murderbot because I was like, it's going to be too good. What am I going to do? He's a murder bot. It's going to be terrible, right? So I think perhaps I just need to give it a try, and maybe and also I know I can put it down if it's too scary. But
Did you read Murderbot though?
I did
Okay, good. Yeah,
obsessively.
because isn't Murderbot amazing?
Oh my gosh. Yes. Oh my goodness. Oh no. It's so good. I mean, look, this is dangerous territory. We talked about the danger of tangents. I'm obsessed with Murderbot. I can talk about it ad nauseum for hours. It's such a wonderful series, and the stories are so great. But also, Martha Wells is a brilliant writer. And look, to bring this back to you via Martha Wells, if you don't mind, you share something in common with her as a storyteller that I personally really adore. And that is that you are writing as a woman with that sort of feminist perspective, and it's fearless. You are fearless on the page. You're very, everything about what you write is so beautiful and unflinching and like deeply observational about the human existence. And Martha Wells does the same thing whilst creating these really gorgeous, luscious, fantastical worlds. And you come out of children's fiction into the sort of adult fantasy, and as it is often called, romantasy. You get sort of categorized that way these days or not, and you write horror. Some people might say, how are those 3 points combined? My observation is that it's your fearlessness, because you have to be really honest with children too. They can always smell a lie.
Oh yeah.
So this, my question, sort of like in there buried, what's your feeling? What connects those 3 points for you as an author?
I think it's sort of the thing with horror and romance is that I will swear they are the two most closely linked genres, because they are the only two where that are defined by what they make you feel, and not by the setting or the is there magic, is there science fiction, whatever. So they are those. It's like horror and comedy very closely linked as well. It's just because they're trying to make you feel something. And horror and children's books are actually, I think, in many ways kind of close, because uh, there's an immediacy to children's books. You do not have 10,000 words to just kind of dick around and figure out where the story is going. You have to engage them very quickly, and you need to be very I guess visceral. Like, it has to be something that is clear and they understand and can relate to. And but there's also the flip side of that, which is kind of where I came in, which is that I sort of started out as a children's book author kind of on accident, and I uh, after a point realized there are lots of things you cannot do in a children's book, and frequently I did not know that until I tried to do it, and the editor would be like, okay, no, we do not solve our problems with arson in children's books. Let's just be clear, there's a blanket no arson. And I'm like, okay, I can sort of understand this now that you have said it, but sometimes the logical thing to do is just burn the haunted house down. And so, okay, no, you're not allowed to kill this character off. I'm like, but I want to. And so after a point, all the things I was not allowed to do sort of compressed down into Diamond, and I was like, I'm going to write a book for adults, and I'm going to do everything, and no one will stop me. And I did, and enjoyed it a lot. Actually, it was a little novella called Nine Goblins. The problem was that no one could publish it, like, not because it was super like gory or anything. It was just novella length at the time was very hard, and a lot of editors were looking at it going, I like this, I have no idea how to sell it. But so eventually I was like, why don't I self-publish it? And my agent, God love her, is like, that sounds like a good idea. Yell if you need somebody to negotiate the foreign rights. And I did, and it was great. And I did another one, and that was great. And just kind of went on like that, and finally was more writing for adults than I was for kids, and which was honestly kind of a relief, because when they send you on tour as a children's book author, you have to go to like 2 or 3 schools a day and basically do an hour-long show in front of 100 to 200 unimpressed children in, like, 3rd through 6th grade, and that was brutal, to be honest.
Yeah, no, look, I was going to ask you, was it hard making the transition from children's book author to adult author? But you've clearly answered that question.
It was a relief.
I, I have the pleasure occasionally of being asked in to do like a storybook hour at a middle school for children, and the first time I did that was such a learning experience, because as Cheshire says, kids will destroy you. They they have no qualms about pointing out when they think you're rubbish or inauthentic. They can smell a lie. And I must admit, I have not read your children's fiction. I don't have children. I'm an auntie to many, a parent to none. But a thing I have observed myself in going back to children's fiction is it needs to be good, it must be honest. And I think that that is a sentiment you could carry into other fiction. And
Oh,
perhaps
absolutely.
you have pulled that arsenal with you into your adult fiction.
Two, I am certain I have. The one thing I have noticed is that you cannot, kids cannot get a whiff that you are talking down to them. If you are condescending in any way, like that is the end. They will look at you with beady little eyes and vow they will never read your book, and they will dance on your grave. Um, so yeah, I try very hard not to be condescending in any of my books. It's and there is an immediacy, you know, as I said, you have to like start. I mean, I think it was Kurt Vonnegut who said, "Start as close to the end as you can," and so yes, you have to start in media res uh, to sort of grab people, whether you know kids or adults. And I'm very proud of the children's books I wrote. I think some of them were great. There were we were writing a lot for reluctant readers, and so they were part comic book, and I was doing the illustrations as well. And I got lots of lovely fan mail about kids who you know were reading the books who were not big readers, and you know, awesome.
Oh,
That and the turtles is what's going to get me into heaven, if anything. But it's no, seriously. I have this vision that like it's that after I die, I will be standing in front of a jury, and the people who will speak in my defense are a bunch of turtles I helped across the road, and like the bat I rescued from my apartment in college, kind of thing. And you know, those are the witnesses for the defense.
look, you know what? I feel like that's very high praise, though, to have a bunch of turtles who have hard shells and are notoriously either vicious or shy, and bats who are much maligned and misunderstood come to your defense. That's high praise, right? You have
I hope so.
Yes, I mean, look, that gets top marks in my book anyway, because I happen to love both those types of creatures. So I'm like, good, you're keen with the turtles and the bats, all is well. You
I will
are
say,
you?
if you like that, for you and the commenter there, I have a book coming out in I think December called Snake Eater. It's set in the desert, and yeah, I know there's a lot of books coming out, and there is in fact a scene where basically because the heroine keeps, instead of squashing scorpions, she keeps taking them outside and releasing them. It actually comes back to help, and the god of scorpions comes to her aid for that one. So
My gosh, I'm so afraid of scorpions, but like so afraid of scorpions. But also, you live in the desert. I live in the desert. Scorpions are an important part of the ecosystem. And I love that this heroine is able to like recognize that and save the scorpions. I uh don't know that I'm that enlightened, although I also can't kill them because I'm too terrified of them. So I have to call in the handy lesbians, honestly, to come save me. So
it's good to have those around.
yes, yes, very important. I try and surround myself with as many lesbians as I can at any one time, frankly. So, but no, I love this because there's a certain feral quality uh to your heroines at times, and by at times I mean most of the time. And you also have a bit of a feral quality, and I mean this in like highest praise. Um, Social media is like such a strange place, and when people may follow their favorite authors and things online, it can give you kind of a fascinating perspective that may or may not be based in any kind of reality. But you have been navigating this social media world for a long time. I stumbled onto you originally on the now defunct Twitter. And I was
Oh,
so
thank God!
charmed.
I thought you were about to say live journal, and I was like, oh God, I'm old.
No, uh, I I'm going to like this is not this is a bit of a self-own, as the young people would say. I thought I was too cool for school for social media back in the live journal days. It was very strange as a time traveler, but it was a Turkish professor who sort of forced me onto social media to do things with Turkish. But I ran into you first in like the old Twitter days, and you're not like you're not mean or anything like that. This is not your persona. You're not engaging in rage bait, but you bring some of that sensibility of your heroines and of your true self, I think, to the page. You're going to talk about animals. You're going to talk about your natural world. You uh, have a wonderful presence. Is this something that you thought about in terms of like being an author out in the world and having to be public? Or did you just decide, I don't give two figs? I'm going to do what I want with this stupid social media machine.
I was very fortunate, I think, in that I did not I did not make any like calculating plans, and it worked out. I would not necessarily suggest that most people jump in and start splaying their id all over the page, but I think I was lucky that I turned out to be fairly good at Twitter and whatnot. Otherwise, I have known plenty of authors who, if you do not enjoy social media and you are not good at it, a bad social media presence can hurt you way more than just not having one. So it's one of those things where do it because you enjoy it or are good at it. Do not just do it because you think authors have to have a social media. But I actually really enjoyed it. I love Twitter. I have been known to be somewhat argumentative, and I always enjoyed, batting around the occasional troll. I've gotten better about that. I'm on Blue Sky now. I'm like, all right, no, I'm not gonna. Not, well, maybe just one troll as a treat. So
Just a little, yeah.
yeah, and yeah, I partly because I started on LiveJournal where we were all incredibly earnest. I kept being very earnest, I think, and I did not sit and think about my social media persona, which was actually sort of a problem when I suddenly became a children's book author, because I was like, oh God, I swear all the time on social media. And I was fortunate in that I didn't run into too many problems there. I think most small children were not allowed on Twitter, and if they were on Twitter, there was they knew they shouldn't be there. So if their favorite author was saying "fuck" a lot, they did not really have a leg to stand on. Um, that's my theory, anyway.
It's a good theory because it did used to be a little bit more the case that children did not have access to these spaces. And so things like I know the old adage was that Twitter was like a cocktail party, right? And so and cocktail parties are generally an adult space, right? And now we're over on Blue Sky, which is like trying to be a more wholesome space in some ways. Um,
It's a kombucha tasting party where a lot of us have booze in the back.
right. Yeah, just a mellow cocktail, maybe only two. Yeah, but you do demonstrate something that I thought was so important with your presence on social media, and it gave me a real insight to the whole experience of being an artist in this modern world. You have a real coterie of artists, of authors that you are connected with. And I think one of the most important things you can do as an artist of any variety is make friends with other artists who are sort of in the same realm with you. Not, I don't look. Charles Dickens, nice chap, did a lot of things, kind of a mixed bag, terrible to his wife, good storyteller, cared about the world. Absolutely a menace at dinner parties. You know, he will ramble on. I try not to time travel back too often to have dinner with him. I don't need to be chums with Charles Dickens. He's in a like stratosphere beyond where I'm at as a weird time traveling artist. I want to be friends with people who are like in the trenches with me and facing the same kinds of challenges. And that is something I witnessed from you and your connection with people like John Scalzi and Shannon McGuire. And it's this strange thing as a reader and an admirer of your work that by seeing your coterie, I was sort of like led into reading their works via your connection with them.
Oh yeah, it's. I think that some artists of any creative field get the feeling that the people around them are competition in some way, and no, these are your colleagues. These are your peers who are doing the same thing because uh, you cannot possibly produce enough art just on your own to fill all the waking hours of anyone. So they can always read way more books than you have time to write. Uh, so it's much better to hang out with people that and who are finding the same challenges, and we tend to run into each other at conventions as we did, and you meet new people and are like, oh yes, you are you know the drill, you know the struggle, you know what it's like to do multiple cons in a row and whatnot, and
Yes.
so it's a very normal process of like making friends, and I think that some people starting out think it is networking, and like, I mean, maybe to a certain extent, but like I could not get anyone a book deal if my life depended on it. It's just that you meet people and you know them, and it and most of it's not like we all get together and spend our time talking about the craft of writing or anything. We get together and complain about our taxes and who lost a suitcase on which airline, and goodness, it is muggy today, and yeah. So, but yeah.
Normal people stuff, but also like important things if you are working in a very isolated field. So, one of the things about making art, I know you know this, is that it is a very solitary experience for much of the work process. And
Oh
for
yeah.
some artists, they're introverts, they're like happy with this solitary pursuit. But I think even an introvert needs times of human connection. And
Oh yeah.
that
I
human
mean,
connection is everything, right?
oh yeah. I mean, like I spend through 2 to 3 hours a day sitting on my laptop typing, and that's my job essentially. And if and I live way out in the boonies. If I wasn't able to get together with other people occasionally, and this is not like social media is actually good for, is you have all of these friends basically in your pocket, and you're like, hello, pocket friends. Today, I saw an interesting bug, and many of them will cheer for your bug or be like, oh, I know what that bug is. So I think in many ways, as much as social media has wrecked many of our mental health, it's also been great in some regards. It's very much a mixed bag, but yeah, absolutely, other authors worth getting to know, and just because they're the people who understand what you're doing and all the things around it, and also it's always fun when you can promote their books to and I'm just like, yes, my buddy Elizabeth Bear just had the third Ancestral Night book come out. You should totally read that. And the sequel
Totally
to
read
Karen
that book.
Memory. Oh yes.
Yes, you should read that book.
Yeah, right. And I mean, Murderbot sells itself, thank God. But
Yes.
yeah, but like KJ Charles has, I think, a new one coming out soon, and How to Make It in Society Without Even Trying, and that one's a lot of fun.
Oh my gosh. No, so I feel very fortunate as a reader as well as an artist because um, I am reminded again and again when I have the absolute privilege to speak with you or another author or artist of your caliber, that despite all the difficult things, we're in a very glorious time for the amount of art available and for the kinds of stories that are being told. Uh, I
And
had this
ease of
great,
access. I mean,
yes.
we can read all of these books so easily instead of in my youth lurking at B. Dalton's or seeing what they got in, or you may or may not have spent time with Gutenberg, but you understand the
Well,
problems.
absolutely. Look, I I've been all over the place, and I remember a time in which the thought of women reading novels was really quite a scandal. My family was very understanding. They demanded that I also read non-fiction if I was going to give into this whole novel experience, right? And that I keep my ankles covered at all times, naturally. But to have the access, to have public libraries, to have so many mediums of consumption for our stories is really remarkable, but also the kind of stories that are being written. So I've spoken with some authors who write a variety of stories that are from a marginalized community, or they are themselves from a marginalized community telling their own sort of stories. And the the conversation often goes to how important it is for them to write stories they wish they could have read at a certain point in their life. Do you
Oh yeah.
feel here you are, we're we're not the same age, but we've been around for a bit. Um, do you feel like you are writing the middle-aged women you wish you could have read as a younger woman?
Uh, I'm not sure if as a younger woman I would have cared as much, but I write the books I think that I would want to read now because I am like, man, I the standard romance trope of you're 19 and up to like 23. I'm going, okay, but like it might last, but statistically, there's an excellent chance that even after you've saved the world together, you'll eventually, in your 30s, be like, we have grown apart and have different interests, and you'll wind up with someone else. I always have a hard time of believing the love story of the 19-year-old and whatnot for forever. So I'm like, I'm gonna write the story about the people who've been around the block a little bit and who are fat and tired and have to sleep on the ground and like this is killing me, or in one case if you have to sex too vigorously you will throw your back out, and the those are the sorts of books that like I'm like I don't see a lot of that and I would like to be reading it. So I'm like, well, if no one is writing it, I will write it. God damn it. And they will probably age up as I continue. So by the time I'm 70, I will be writing 70-year-old, women falling in love, and I will probably want it then. And so we'll see how it goes.
Yes. Oh my gosh, look. I I love your middle-aged women. I love these characters who are um not youthful. They may be going on adventures, but their knees hurt. They're tired. They know the importance of like a good bed and a good stretch and a good meal and like just the basic survival, right? I love that. Oh, Lady Jewsquirrel wants to know, how about for 80-year-olds, my darling? Yes, yes.
I agree. It may take me a while before I can write that authentically, but I will get there.
I think it's important. And I think there's something, Gen X gets a lot of gaff on the internet, and also dishes its own variety of sort of jaded, we've been there, done that, we drank from the garden hose energy, in return.
Oh
Um,
yeah, no,
I say
we
that
are
with love.
our soul stinks of clove cigarettes. Yes,
Oh, oh my goodness, so very much. But also, at this point, Gen X, all of the authors we've talking about, spoken about, all of the artists we've been discussing, uh, they're Gen X authors. They're creators out of this period, and there is a certain quality of story, at least from the ones that I am personally enamored of. It is like, yes, we were feral and we have survived, and we have survival guides that we're putting in our stories. I love that this is happening because for a long time, fantasy, rightly or wrongly, really had this like uh reputation for being a lot of Mary Sue's, a lot of insert fiction. Do you feel that observation is really warranted, that we're in a period in which people are like, no, I'm going to show more of the like real human experience of being in this fantastical world, or that people were missing out on those very authentic stories in fantasy and science fiction in the past?
I think there were always authors who did it. I mean, Ursula K. Le Guin comes to mind, but the popular stuff was always uh, the Wheel of Time, whatnot. Basically, the farm boy with a destiny saves the world kind of thing. And yes, your first farm boy is special, your hundredth not so much. And I think that part of it is that to a certain extent, it is still very much self-insert. Like, I am a middle-aged woman with ADHD who would so, and that's like half my heroines, I think, if not three quarters. But the who is allowed to have the self-insert or fantasy has changed. Like it's sort of like the farm boy with a destiny is to a certain extent is very much a straight white dude kind of, not even a self-insert, because I think a self-insert would be more honest, but more of like a power fantasy sort of thing. The and it appeals very much, like I totally get the appeal of you're just a schlub, but you have a destiny, and you will save the world. And I can understand how, if you're a 16-year-old white kid, that total boy particularly, that appeals. Uh,
Yes.
I'm a middle-aged woman, and so I think my power fantasies and my self-inserts have changed, in that now they're basically, can I get a nap? Can I get justice? The order of which I want those two changes depending on the time of day. And so it's I think the fantasy is more that that people like me in a fantasy world can thrive and be happy and maybe make the world a little better. Very rarely do is the whole world in balance. Like I think the biggest stakes I've ever had were that someone had destabilized the salt trade, and that was because I just read a fascinating nonfiction book about salt and was like, I have got to write a book about this, which is how a lot of my books come about. Is I will read an amazing nonfiction book and be like, oh, I got to write a book about this.
Oh my gosh. Look, I very rarely ask authors, how do you get your ideas? Because I know it's a question that you get asked so often. And so I try and like lead the conversation in a new and like whimsical direction with no roadmap, if you will. Um, but I love that that is how you get so many of your ideas that you're like, you're reading this nonfiction thing and you're like, this sounds really interesting. I don't want to write about a farm boy. I want to write about this.
Oh
Was
yeah.
so good.
Oh, the number of books that have come about just because I will read interesting nonfiction. The I think it was called Salt: A World History. Fascinating. I'm just like, salt rules everything. Someone pointed out a few weeks ago online, like, do you have something against Venice? And I'm like, why Venice? And they're like, a lot of your fantasy cities are Venice. And I'm like, wow, you're right, they are. I did at one point read a fascinating book about Venice controlling both the salt trade and the spice trade everywhere, and having like it was a city state with a standing army that, and like, I've reinvented Venice 3 times. Interesting. The I read one when I think I was supposed to be working on something else. I read this fascinating book on the history of cosmetics and perfume, and that became the first of the Saint of Steel books, because I was like, oh, perfumes, and they're linked to poisons throughout history because they both resembled alchemy, and everyone thought that the Medicis were making poisoned gloves and things. And all right, wow, that would be a great premise for a book. Let me go write that. And then I did so much research on poison for that book that I couldn't put in, that I wound up writing Hemlock and Silver, which just came out, which is all about medieval poisons, because there was just all this really cool stuff. And so a lot of my inspiration, yes, does come from reading nonfiction, and the only downside is that then I will read like a really interesting book about medieval sewer design and be like, how do I write a romantasy based around medieval sewer design? And still working on that one.
Look, if Lady Hawk can do it, you can do it. I have every faith.
Oh, thank you for mentioning Lady Hawk. One of my favorite fantasy movies of all time, even with the music score.
Music score. Look, I love that movie. It's so many parts of it that are absolutely ridiculous. But
Oh yeah.
Rutger Hauer is so great. Michelle
Oh
Pfeiffer,
yeah.
the whole cast.
Oh yeah, yeah, and Matthew Broderick, like that should have been more than a cult classic, but it I blame the synth, but
Oh, yes. 100%. No. But also there's this whole bit with the sewers in that movie, everyone. If you have not watched Lady Hawk, or you haven't seen it in a while, I recommend seeing it. If you've never seen it before and you're under 40, maybe under 45 even, you might be like, what? You have to stick through,
just go
all
with
right?
it. Yeah,
You just hold on. It's worth it. The payoff is great, right? So trust me.
it I don't know if it so much holds up as all the part. It's still worth it despite like many very dated oddities, but it's still delightful. Also, another one
It
that holds up
is.
really well, just because we watched it last night in honor of the late great Robert Redford. Sneakers holds up amazingly.
Yes. Oh my gosh. All right. I promise we will not go too far, but I saw you posting about watching Sneakers again. and how good it was. I was like, oh, I need to rewatch that. I loved that movie when it came out, and I love Robert Redford. And uh, so I think I'll go this way. I will say that Robert Redford is such a great example of how art sticks with us, and how someone who is just creating their art to the best of their ability has an impact so far outside of what they could ever imagine. And you do that with your stories. You are so welcome. I say that sincerely, because you really are just a masterful writer with zero pretense about it. You're not precious. You don't come in. I mean, like, look, I love tweed and I love a turtleneck, and I'm here for the whole like professorial moment. But I do like that your dog, I think it's your dog, maybe it's your cat, is like wandering around behind you.
The dog has wandered in, yes, and wandered out again.
So
Yeah,
great.
I know I should set up the fancy background and the lighting and everything, but like life is too short.
Life is short. Also, look, no one say this is a terrible dark secret. Obviously, I'm mentioning it on the internet, so I want it to stay very secret. But behind me is just like mess and a cat tower, which I don't want because I have OCD and it distracts me while I'm talking. So I hide it for my own ability to focus, to be frank. And also so I don't have to clean after the cats. But like, life is short. The important part is being here and having the conversation. And frankly, I like seeing your dog coming in and out of the frame. So, all of that said, my darlings, now is the time. If you have questions for T. Kingfisher, please put them in the comments. Put a question mark at the front, because Madam Gale has trained us that this is the best way to be able to see a question in the chat. And we love Madam Gale. She's a wise creature. So
That is a
please,
good idea.
please. It is, look, she is so smart. And it does work incredibly well. So I'm a little biased because she's my chum and I think she's a delight. And as Lady June Squirrel says, I love your New Mexico panels background. Absolutely. It's such a wonderful, like, it's Santa Fe, it's New Mexico. It's gorgeous. All right. So here's a question for you. Do you have a favorite genre in which you prefer to write? Asked Bill.
Uh, I usually sort of default to fantasy. That's kind of my sort of default setting. I do like writing horror, but I came to that much later when people kept saying there's a lot of horror in this fantasy, and I was like, oh, huh, what if I tried to write a horror novel? Uh, and I did, and it was called The Twisted Ones, and I am pleased that it was apparently scary. Horror is so individual that what scares me may not scare you. But fantasy is where I tend to go. Although any genre that I haven't written recently or haven't written yet, I get kind of an itch. I'm working on a science fiction novel that has uplifted naked mole rats, and yeah, they're sort of like cross between naked mole rats and the Borg. They do have a queen. They're sort of linked through cybernetic wear, and they're like used as engineering and and repair staff on spaceships because they need so much less space, and they're proof against like radiation, and they need low oxygen, and they can tolerate low oxygen and everything. So yeah, yes, it is. It is the naked mole rat science fiction novel, and I'm enjoying writing it because it's something I haven't done before.
I look, clearly the reaction from all of us is like excited, very keen. Your audience is here. We all want to read about your wonderful uplifted naked mole rats. Sounds amazing. So so segging into that, Bill asks, has writing in different genres caused issue with your fans' preferences?
I I have been very lucky. It's usually more publishers that have the problem because they're like, your fantasy sells well, write more of what sells. I've been very lucky that Tor has been extremely open to me being like, I want to write a horror novel, and they're like, all right, we have a horror imprint, pitch the book, and so I'm very privileged there. There are lots of people who are not so lucky and get like pigeonholed into a genre, certainly. I know that many of my fans don't do horror, and that is okay. I am perfectly willing. I will write more fantasy. I certainly I hold no grudges about that because there's lots of horror I can't read. There are like 3 or 4 horror authors that I can read, and everyone else I'm like, uh, it's uh, uh, it's a very individual genre compared to like fantasy or something. So that's about the only
Yes.
thing. Yeah.
Well, clearly, at least here in this little corner of the internet, we're all like, we'll follow you anywhere. We're excited for your naked mole rats. Um, and like, again, this is not really about me, but I've definitely been on a journey with understanding what horror is and what I actually read because people were like, you read a lot of vampire fiction for someone who says they don't like horror books. And I was like, oh, right. Is that horror? I thought it was fantasy. Um,
There's one coming out, by the way, that I blurbed. It's called Vow of Eternal Night. It's a lot of fun. I don't know when the release date is. I should look that up, but highly recommend it if you like my romantasy. It's a I enjoyed the heck out of it. Um, Lily Crozier comes
ooh,
out February 17th, 2026. Yes, recommend that one highly
ooh.
just because I loved it. So
Oh, oh, thank you. Thank you. I love that. And also, look, you are doing something I really love, which is and often asked for, which is giving us book recommendations because we're all readers here, so we want to know who you recommend. So Mad Scientist asks, I loved Illuminations a lot. It feels a little like a dream that you wrote down. Is there something specific that triggered that story?
uh, yes, to an extent. I had actually started a book years before that was more for adults or young adults or something, and it had a lot of the same premises about magical paintings being able to do things. Although in this case they were saint icons, and it was this sort of, I don't know, cosmic horror thing, and it just was not hanging together. Like it had some really cool elements, but it like each individual scene was good, but they did not make a book that was working. And like, so after like, 20,000 words, I gave up. And then years later, I was sort of like, what if I did that in a kid's book? Because I was a kid's book author at the time. And so I just sort of started writing, and the idea of that, of the family that paints things and makes the various icons like control various little bits of the world. Like you can put a painting on something to keep the mice from getting into the pantry or whatever, was a sort of right there. And I was like, oh, maybe this is where that thing belonged. And then it just kind of really flowed once I was there. But uh, every now it's rare that I will start something and get that far into it and then be like, this is not working at all. But it does happen. Frequently, I will come up with a thing that does not belong anywhere, and I will wait sometimes years and then be like, oh, this is the spot where that was supposed to go, and sort of slot it into a book. I have been trying for like 20 years to figure out where the blood drinking hummingbird familiar goes. I have never found the spot he belongs in, but one of these days.
One of these days. I love that. And we've got a couple of more questions I want to come back to here. But also I love that as an author, you are at a point where you can tell that something is not working, set it aside, and the right story will eventually present itself. I think that is something that comes with experience of craft, right? Time and grade, as they say. So,
Oh yeah.
um,
Oh, someone asked
really
for a
quick.
repeat of the title.
Yes,
Vow of
exactly.
Eternal Night. And
Vow of Eternal Night.
yes, by Lily Crozier, Crozier.
All right, and I've
It's
put it
very
into the
goth.
chat. Very
Oh,
goth. We
excellent.
love goth. Well, at least I love a goth moment. And it's spooky season, so I'm very, very keen. All right. So Diana asks, in the Sworn Soldiers series, what prompted you to write about a land with all the gender pronouns? I love this. Thank you, Diana. It's a really great question.
It is, and this is another one of those things that I had to find the spot it went. And in fact, there are references in a couple of fantasy novels to uh, something like it. There is a thing, a social workaround, I suppose is the best term, that keeps popping up throughout human history, where uh, if and the best example recently was early in the 1900s in Albania. Uh, if women could not hold property and women could not be the head of the household, but because they were in an area with a fairly high male mortality rate, because it was a very conflict thing, they were like, okay, well, we'll fix that. We'll just have daughters basically say, okay, I'm a son now, and so women could swear as a man, and they were sworn men basically, and
Yes.
the and in fact, usually it was their mothers who would ask them to do it, because in this particular society, at least, if your husband died and you were a widow, you had to move in with your in-laws if you did not have a son who could like hold property. And so historically, basically, mothers would ask their daughters to swear as a man so that they could hold the household, so that nobody had to move in with the in-laws. And I was like thinking about, and so I had read about that, and that was fascinating. And it happens as far back as apparently it shows up a couple times in Mesopotamia. And I was just thinking about like the workarounds that we come up with for things like that, which was part of it. And the other thing with the all the pronouns was the I had been playing with pronouns already a little in some of my fantasy novels, where there's a race of the Dulls, who are sort of a badger people, where their pronouns are not based on their gender, but on their caste, their sort of job. And so I was thinking about that. And 1,000 years ago in high school, I took Japanese. I took 4 years of it. I was terrible at it. I remember a couple of nouns and some swear words. But the one of the things that stuck with me was, in the counting systems, you used different words for counting things like, like sheets of paper, as you did for oranges, as you did for people. It wasn't just like 1, 2, 3, 4. It was like different actual words. And I was thinking that is so peculiar that you would, it seems sort of inefficient. And then hanging out with Finnish friends who are like, no, we don't actually have our main pronoun isn't really gendered. There's a brilliant book called Ancillary Justice, science fiction novel worth reading. And the central conceit was that one of the central conceits was that she was the default pronoun for everyone in that language. Freaked a lot of people out when they read it, the sort who deserved to be freaked out by that. And but in Finnish, it didn't work at all, because the translations, they were like, yeah, okay, that's just how everything sounds. So it was all kind of in the back of my brain percolating. And I eventually was like, what if you had a society where where soldiers where everybody had like different pronouns, male, female, children, priests, soldiers, and that was kind of where it started. And as soon as I started writing What Moves the Dead, basically Alex Easton kind of stampeded onto the page. Like every now and again, you get the fully formed from the head of Zeus moment sort of thing with a character. It's nice when that happens. I wish it happened more often, but they were one, and it was great. And I was like, oh, this is where all of that stuff that has been percolating was going. It was you.
Oh, all right. Look, I love everything about this. And also, Diana, again, thank you for asking this wonderful question. It's something increasingly that I find so beautiful about your stories. I think the first time I picked up your book, I noted it, but it didn't hit me as strongly as it does now. But of course, in the context in which we're reading now, it feels so profound that you are writing in a way that makes it very clear on the page that a gender diverse world is a normal world. And I have I have a personal like investment in the whole like detail about the sworn sons from Albania, because I used to sing Albanian music, and so I'm delighted because no one ever talks about that. It's like, oh, that's where we're going. I'm so happy because it's like a wonderful piece of history. um and I think this is a place where if you read too narrowly and you experience too narrowly, you get a view of the world that's very myopic. But as soon as you open that up, you discover that there's like so much wildness going on, from having to swear as a man so your family does not have to go live with your terrible Uncle Roderick who's going to make you scrub floors, to like pronouns are different based on language and lived experience and have been forever. And I just love that you bring all of this sensibility into your stories. It comes back to the fact that you are reading nonfiction extensively, experiencing the world, and then using that to infuse your own creativity. It's just, it really appeals to me. I don't have a question. I'm
Yeah.
like, I just love that.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad. Yeah, I occasionally worry when I'm writing that I'm like, okay, is this one of those things where the author has done a lot of research and they are determined you will see every bit of research they did? But because I know we've all read books like that, but there are authors who can do that and make it look like dancing. Like Terry Pratchett, basically, could he could have written a book about sewer systems that would have moved the soul, and you would have learned a lot about sewers. It, yeah.
It's so true. Oh my gosh. Sainted Sir Terry. I know he wouldn't necessarily think of himself as sainted, but I can in my heart. So, in a sort of ephemeral sense. I love that. I love that you put on all of this nonfiction. I have a background in linguistics, so I'm always very thrilled when someone's like, let's talk about pronouns and how they use different systems of pronouns and counting and all of this and other languages. It's so beautiful. But I also do not want to ramble on about phonemes today. This is not a linguistics conversation. This is a creativity conversation, although I will talk about phonemes at any time, to be clear. So
I am
everyone,
I am always intrigued by phonemes, but yes.
let's talk
What's your
fricatives.
favorite phoneme?
So everyone, I am about to go into my last round of questions with our wonderful guest today, T. Kingfisher, the author of so many fantastic books, including Sword Heart and the whole, white rat world. You've got to just get out there and reading T. Kingfisher's work. But this is your last moment to ask any burning questions before I torment our author guest for the last few minutes of our conversation. So be sure to get them in. Also, gold stars to everyone for asking some wonderful questions today. You are all very good, and I adore you, and I would buy you a cup of tea if we were in the same room. So, right, now that I've faffed about, given you some time to think about any nice question, I'm going to pull up my final gambit. And I'm also going to like sort of add a little bit before I go into my last bit, because I am a nerd. I'm a nerd for literature, and I like to end up with asking my modified Proust questionnaire. It's modified because it's merely 9 questions instead of like 50 bajillion. Bless. I mean, he's a wonderful author, but also he's like, I want to ask everyone an entire survey, like a sociologist, every time I meet them. And I love that energy, but it's too much for a simple conversation. And I know when we had the pleasure of being at Tucson Festival of Books and chatting on that panel, it was such a wonderful panel. I wish everyone could have been there. You are just so funny and insightful and delightful to share space with in a conversation. I already was in love with your books, but I came away quite smitten with you as an artist. So thank
I
you.
enjoyed very much being on the panel with you. You were a delight.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the compliment. At the time I said, I made a statement that I considered your books to be part of the queer writing world, and you're like, they're not really. I guess, right? You were like, I sure, if you want to go there, but
I didn't want stolen valor because I am a straight cis woman, and I am thrilled that people like them. I just don't want to impose on a group that I don't have
represent.
the yes.
Yes. So I just want to say that your answer to the pronoun question is why I'm so happy to include your books in my queer reading list, because you do really make a beautiful space for queer people to exist within your
Oh,
stories and to be part of your world. And it's really lovely, especially right now. And as Bill
thank
says,
you.
reading Clockwork Boys was a delightful discovery. He's now on a mission to read more of your work. Bill, you're going to really like the horror fiction. You've got to read it so you can report back to me, okay? So Bill is my co-host for our monthly book chat, and tomorrow, speaking of, we have our monthly session. We're discussing the delightful Monsters Volume 1 by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda. I'm very excited, as this is my first graphic novel for book chat. We're going to have a great time. So,
Oh, awesome.
but yeah, it's going to be wonderful. So my friend, here we go. We're going into Proust. Very excited. He was a wonderful dandy of a man with some great questions. And my first question for you is, what are your favorite qualities in a human being?
Oh goodness. I they have to be funny in a way that I mean there are people whose sense of humor and I do not gel. Um, I think they have to retain some of the quality of wonder about the world. Like if I go, oh my God, look an interesting bug, they go like, wow, that is an interesting bug, not uh-huh. So
Enthusiasm. Yeah,
yes, yeah,
I love that.
and uh, I also prefer they be honest and reasonably trustworthy and all, and that so that I am not worrying about things, but also the ability to sit with someone in silence and companionably and be like on your phone or playing a video game or something and or working and just the two of you in the same space. That's nice.
I love that. I love that. All right. I feel like this actually, you may have answered this question already, But what do you appreciate the most in your friends?
Uh, Most of the things I mentioned. Also, I have ADHD like whoa, and my sense of time is not always great. So, like, if I don't talk to someone for a year, I will often be like, "It's been a year? What?" So not worrying that I'm mad at them when we haven't spoken for 6 months, because probably I just looked up and it was 6 months later. I have a number of friends who are like, wait, how long has it been? Really? Wow. And then it's just like nothing ever happened. And we go back to talking. But yeah.
I love that too. I have a number of chums that we may go quite a while between, and it's so beautiful to be able to do that. What is the virtue you strive for the most in yourself?
Uh, I in terms of striving, I think I try to be uh, well, good, but that's a very broad term. Compassionate. I am. I am not by nature a terribly nurturing person. I like garden fine because I can go and leave it and come back in a week and pull some weeds. When my husband was getting some major dental work of the kind they knock you out for, sort of thing, I would like go in the bedroom and be like, "Are you dead yet? No, okay, I'll come back in an hour." Uh, so knowing that I am not a nurturing person, I try to be a compassionate one and do the things that I can do, like which mostly involves like donating money to the kinds of things that I know I will not do, like the adopt an elder program that goes out and brings firewood and companionship whatnot to like Navajo elders on a reservation. I am never going to be the sort of person who does that. So I will happily give them money to support that, knowing that that's not my skill set.
Yeah, well, no, I can't deliver firewood either. I mean, honestly, I love all my lesbian friends. But that's what the lesbians are for, is to deliver the firewood. I'm a weird bisexual. I will decorate the firewood. So I love that. I love that. All right. What is your ideal way to pass an afternoon?
Uh, I I am going to out myself as an enormous nerd. I greatly enjoy playing Magic the Gathering Commander, and so my stepson and my husband and I will like go to a game shop or something and play Commander, and I enjoy that a lot. When that is not available, I play a lot of video games. Borderlands 4 just came out.
All right. Look, so I'm also a massive nerd. I'm asking you questions from Marcel Proust. But the Grand Arbiter, my partner in all things, is going to be so despondent because he's a huge commander player himself. He's obsessed. If we are at a convention, he always has a deck with him, and he will go play for hours at the drop of a hat. And so I love this. I don't understand magic really,
Tell him
but
I'm a
I
mono white player, and that will be all he needs to know. Mono white
all
is
right.
yeah.
I will tell him. I will tell him. Oh my goodness. Um. So, what is your idea of happiness?
I it's one of those things. Happiness is as soon as you look at it too closely, it goes away.
Mm,
The in fact, I think there's like a parable that probably someone wrote quite recently, but it sounded like it was old, which was that I think it's meant to be ancient Greek, that this divine being kept visiting this shepherd boy, and he always be like, stay with me. And as soon as you said that, she'd leave. And he went and talked to his mentor, and his mentor's like, yes, that is the spirit of happiness. He's like, I tried to talk to her, and she left in like 20 seconds. And the master says, "Oh, you poor boy! If you had refrained, she might have stayed for a minute." And if you think about it too much, it gets there. It goes away. But I like the moments when I'm not worrying about anything in particular, and they usually seem to happen like when I'm driving home with like takeout Chinese food or something, and I'm just like in a good mood, and I'm like, life is good. I am not fretting about an outstanding bill. I'm not worried about a deadline. I have Chinese food. And then I think about it, and I'm like, God damn it, if I had just not thought about it, could have had a whole minute.
Oh, I love that. That's very wise. And I think I'm going to have to take note of that in myself because I am too often observing. Uh, what is your idea of misery?
uh, Usually, worrying over money is it usually winds up when I get the most stressed and anxious and whatnot. Just big upheavals. I travel a lot, but I am really a very boring person in terms of I have a thing I do pretty much every day. I sit down, I write, except weekends I take off, and I often say a rut is just a groove with bad publicity, and I like my rut. It is comfortable. This is my
Yes.
hole. It was made for me. Um, so I when I am out of that, like forcibly because of terrible upheavals, and I'm worried that I'm not going to be able to pay the bills or whatever. That's misery.
Yeah, no, look, I love having a sort of routine. It helps with the creative process, right? I think I had a music instructor. The nice thing of being a time traveler is I've studied many things. And so I had a music instructor eons ago who said you have to learn the routine and the theory and the practice of music so that you know when to break it to make the art of music. And I thought that was really lovely, and I've held on to it all these decades later. Um, if you have one or were to have one, what is your motto for yourself?
Uh, I This sounds incredibly egotistical, but the thing I wind up writing in my journal is I have not yet failed. And it's not like I have not failed at things, because I have failed at many things, but I have this, possibly I was raised Catholic, this sense that like eventually everything will come crashing down and I will disappoint everyone. So I just remind myself I have not yet failed to, and I am still spinning the plates. And it's sort of like I may have imposter syndrome, but I have not dropped the ball on it yet.
Oh, no, I love that, honestly. And also, you don't need my, validation, but I don't think that's egotistical. In a world that tells women to be quieter and to put their ego into a smaller box, I think that's delightfully subversive, honestly. It's delicious. Um, all right, this is my personal favorite question on this list. What is your favorite swear? No
Oh
holds
God,
barred.
I I I say fuck nuggets a lot, uh, and every now and again I will like sort of pick up a random one. I'm trying to remember what the heck it was. when I was doing children's books, you have to train yourself not at the school visits not to swear. And since my dad was in the Navy, I would like sit in the car beforehand, going, "Don't say fuck, don't say fuck, don't say fuck," uh, and I think fuck nuggets is the one that I come back to, and every now and then, motherfucker. So
Oh yeah, that one has such great mouthfeel, very satisfying
it
to say.
does, and I have known people who could deliver it with just and in ways that I am in awe of. But yeah,
With gusto. Oh my goodness. All right. This is the last question on my list. This is my question I added because of all of the wonderful authors I've had the pleasure to chat with. Um, what is your favorite adjective? And if you're like, I don't use adjectives, I like adverbs, we can go there too. But I like an adjective. So, what is your favorite adjective?
uh, not the one I used the most, but the one that popped immediately into my head was murky. I have always liked
Ooh.
murky.
Ooh, that's such a good. That's like very juicy. Again, good mouthfeel and not used nearly often enough. Murky. I love that. Also, I've loved every minute of this today. Thank you
I have had a
so
great
much.
time.
This has been such a joy. I hope that we may meet again at a convention in person. If the Grand Arbiter's there, I will remind him that you play a mono white commander deck, and he better get get his deck out to do some nonsense. This has been such a joy. T, can you share with all of us what you have coming up next and what we should be reading of yours?
Let's see. Just recently, Hemlock and Silver just came out. It's a standalone fantasy about a woman who tries to find antidotes for poisons, and the king's daughter has been poisoned. And it's Snow White, but it went places. I have the third Sworn Soldier book is coming out September 30th. That is What Stalks the Deep. It takes place in a coal mine in West Virginia. I did a lot of research for that book, which I will just say never be a coal miner in the 1800s if you can avoid it at all costs. And I have another Snake Eater is coming out in December, and it is well, you've spent time in the Southwest. It there's an evil roadrunner god, and everyone who has not lived in the Southwest is like, roadrunners, what, like in the cartoon? And everyone who has lived anywhere in the desert is like, let me tell you a horrible thing I saw a roadrunner do once, because they are like velociraptors.
They are amazing, but they are like little velociraptors and they will do things. I love
Oh yes,
them.
oh yeah, they're great.
They're wonderful.
And yes, so I think that's the ones I have coming out. I write a lot of books. It's okay if you miss some of them. I don't worry about it. They just
You
keep happening.
you you are delightfully prolific. Thank you for being so, so that we may all enjoy your books. And thank you for being here today. Best wishes to you on all of your writing endeavors, but also on your garden and the wonderful
Thank you.
process of settling in to New Mexico. I'm very happy to have you as like sort of a neighbor now. It's really nice. Um,
Absolutely. I
yeah.
am thrilled to be here.
Welcome back. And thank you all for being with us today. Please remember as you go out into the world to treasure yourselves as I treasure you. You are irreplaceable, and the only way that we can continue to do really ridiculous nonsense on the internet together is if you take good care. So please get your boosters and your vaccines, eat your vitamins and minerals, drink the good tea, wear your tiara out to go egg shopping. I maintain, and I will say it again and again, if we are going to be charged like we're living in Versailles, we might as well dress for it when we're going out to the grocery. So be fabulous, my darlings, and I will see you all tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. Pacific for our book chat, which is live on YouTube. We're going to be discussing the delightful Monstrous by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda. I'm very excited for this conversation, everyone. Thank you for being here today with me and the absolutely smashing T. Kingfisher. Go out, read T. Kingfisher's books, do yourself a kindness. Thank you all.
Thank
Cheers.
you.